Hi everybody, it's crazy, it's Monday, and it's time for the UPBGE video of the week. Now, before I get started, gotta give a shout out to my trusted because you guys rock. To my crazy fam, I love you guys. Now, we're up to episode number 78, and we left off with page 17 last week, and we left off at shading. Okay, if you do not have the book, go in the description below, download the book, make sure you download the files along with it, so that way you can be able to keep up with us, and it kind of helps out. All right, so this is the file that we've been using. It was GLSL1-1, which the only thing I did was I made three copies of Suzanne, and I made one with blue eyes and one without. All right, so I'm going to continue off reading, and we're going to be, like I said, last week we did the diffuse and specular, and and went through the preview and what you can do with that, and wireframe, volume, halo, all that stuff. And now we're up to shading. If you didn't catch last week's video, I suggest you go back to it, because this is kind of important because it gets you a lot of information, okay? All right, so we're up to shading, so let's get started. Emit controls how much light a surface appears to give off. A non-zero value means a surface is visible even when it's completely unlit. Because emit is a material property and not a real light source, you cannot rely on using emit materials to light up other objects in the scene. Emit is often used to simulate surfaces that give off light on their own. In other words, the light you see in a game, like a lamp or something like that, it's actually just using the emit value or emit value. Okay, it's emitting what looks like light, but it does not translucent light out. So if I made this, let's say if I emit, I turned up the emit value up on her eyes. If you notice, everything that's blue now becomes like a light source, but it's not a light source though. It does not, cast light. If you look up underneath Susie, up underneath here, you'll notice that there is no light shining up, but the light coming to her is different. Okay, so that's one thing you can do if you want it to kind of look like a light but not be a light. Put a light like a Hemi behind it, that shines outward from it. You can do that with a game. Okay, ambient controls how much influence the ambient color has on the material. Ambient color is a global color that is added on top of all materials, including objects without an explicit material. By default, the ambient color is black. Okay? Effectively disabling itself. The ambient color can be changed in the world panel. If you want to ununiformly lift the brightness of the scene without adding additional lamp, ambient color is the fastest way to achieve this. You can also create a color tint in the world by using the non-white ambient color, which is a great way to set the mood of your scene. Okay, so what it's talking about is ambient. If you take the ambient down, okay, it's not going to be as strong. If you bring it back up, it's going to. Now you can change it over here in what they're talking about in the world menu. This is your ambient color. If I change this, say, to white, notice how bleached out everything is. Now if I turned it blue, okay, you can give kind of a hue to your world or to your scene, okay, on what it is. But most of the time it's just black because it's just the ambient color. You can bring it up a little bit and have some color in it, like you say you want a little bit more of an orangey color. Look how neatly that picked in. Okay, or you want to kind of blend in with the grass a little bit. It's like a forest, big green forest. Or hey, you're in a nightclub and the lights are flashing. Okay, I'm get off of that now. Okay, but ambient color does really help out a lot. Okay, when you're doing things. Okay, so ambient drawbacks. Ambient does have its drawbacks because it adds light to all surfaces uniformly. Excessive ambient will reduce the contrast of the scene, making everything look flat and washed out. Okay, so again, if I brought this all at the white, you won't be able to see much of it. Okay, so the stronger that you have it, now let's go back over to our material. Okay, and we come up here to ambient and we take that ambient light out, you notice that it still looks washed out. Okay, the colors are still washed out, even though the ambient is all the way down to 0, because of the fact you, for one, changed the color, but you have it too strong. Okay, now if you took this down to like that, so you want to have glowing heads, with a white ambient, like a grayish ambient. Okay, if not, that's it. Okay, and you turn it back. If you bring it back up, if you look, nothing really happens. Okay, because you have to change the color offset. But you can change it to like a little bit more of a yellow hue to give it kind of like a, crisp morning, a little bit more white hue for first thing in the morning, that right before the sun comes up blue. You can do a lot of that with ambient. Okay, just watch out, don't overdo it, is what they're saying. Okay, so next is shadeless. Shadeless, when enabled, disables all light calculation for this material. This option bypasses all the complex shading calculations. Thus, it can improve performance at the cost of no lighting calculation. This option is useful for situations where you do not want the object to react to light. Okay, so I'm going to kick it on shadeless. And as you see the blue, I don't want the blue to cast shadow. Okay, so if you put it on shadeless, all the blue just kind of looks just blue. That's it. There is nothing... it's just straight blue. Whatever color you put here is what color that will be. Okay. Now, having the shadeless off, you see those come back. Now, there is no adjustment, like these are. It's just either shadeless or not. Okay. And sometimes you would want it to be shadeless, if you're working with something that doesn't use shadows. Okay. A lot of people like to use shadeless because they can add their own shadows in later with different other things. Okay, so it doesn't do the calculations. All right, so cubic interpolation, which is this guy right here, okay, when enabled, gives a smoother transition from light to shadow. Now watch the shadow, if you see that, okay, that's pretty, it gives a little bit more contrast to shadow. It's like, oh, this is like a darkened room that has a light on. Okay. Okay, and it's at the cost of a slight performance decrease. So it will cost you performance. So remember, use this very sparingly. Okay, for certain smooth shapes like spheres, this option helps the shape look more natural. Okay, so if you look at the top of her head, it kind of helps when it bounces off of her head over here and over here. It kind of looks smoother. Okay, if you look over here, not so smooth. Okay. Next one, game settings. Okay, that's this next one below. We bypass energy conservation because all that does is just takes all the calculation out completely, that you don't really have to fight it so much. And translucency makes it disappear if you have translucency set. Okay. All right, game settings. When disabled, makes both sides of the face visible when running the game. Okay, so that's basically backface culling. Okay, if you've ever made a square box and you turn on the game and you forgot to check your normals, and one side of the box you can see through that you're not supposed to because you got, for one, backface culling on. For two, okay, the back face you will not be able to see, because it's turned around. So you have to flip that normal around in order to make it to where you can see it. And I had that issue. I've been working on a little bit of oops here lately and trying to get that working. And I ran into that very same thing. Start out with a circle, and for some odd reason, it turns the normals out, inside out. And yeah, the cup is not there. It's invisible because backface culling is on. The normal is reversed, so it looks kind of funky if you're looking at one side of the cup and the front sitting out there, and you're looking at the back side of the cup and it's like, yeah, it's gone. You don't want backface culling for that one. Okay, by default, only the front side of the face is rendered for performance reasons, while the back side of the face is invisible. This is not critical for most new computers if you are to handle a few faces. However, it's better to take the safe approach and disable backface culling only when you need double-sided faces. Okay, so again, you're working on a cup. Okay, if you have backface culling on, half your cup's going to disappear. I had the same problem. There's a trick around that where you can just add an extra face in there on the, inside the cup to make it look like a real cup. That way you don't have to worry about the backface culling issue. But you can always turn this off. Okay. Invisible. When enabled, makes the surface completely invisible. This option is often used for creating hidden physics collision objects. Objects can be also made invisible from the physics panel. We'll cover that on chapter 6. That's this little guy right here, okay? Now, if I turn on invisible now, okay, it's not going to do anything. But in game, this will disappear, and so will her eyes. They will not be seen. It will be invisible. Okay. Text. Let's see, where is text? I don't see no text. See that now? It's one of the things they did take out. Okay. Alright, so that's one of the things. They got face orientation and alpha blend, but I don't see the other one. Okay, when enabled, tells Blender that this object is used by display bitmap text. Using bitmap text in the game engine is covered later in this chapter because bitmap text is rather difficult to set up. Using the Blender text object is an easy alternative. So I believe they took that out of UPBGE and a lot of the newer versions of Blender back, in 2.76, I do believe. All right, so the next one is Alpha Blend. Okay, and face orientation is always normal, but you can do shadow, billboard, halo, or normal. Okay, most people just stick with normal because you want the face orientation to be at the normal. Okay. All right, and if you want it like on like a billboard or shadow or halo, it's within a certain frame of view. Just leave that one alone. We'll just leave it at that. All right, so Alpha Blend selects the way faces are drawn. Options are shown in figure 5.19 in the details in figure 5.19b. Okay, so if you're reading the book, which is over here, okay, it's going to be these guys right here. Okay, these are what they look like. Okay. Now, if you got the book, you will be able to go to that. Just go to to figure 5.19 and B. Okay. Opaque treats the material as a regular solid. This is the fastest draw mode. Opaque is usually the one it defaults to any rate. Okay. Add numerically adds its own surface color with what's behind it, making the combined surface brighter. This option can be used to simulate halo lights, particles, and other bright special effects. Alpha Clip enables binary transparency. Used frequently for texture where there is a very distinct edge, such as tree leaves and a chain link fence. This is the fastest way to render textures with alpha, since there is no alpha blending. A pixel is either fully opaque or fully transparent. Okay, so you can do alpha clip and it will clip off the edges that are on there. Okay, so that's one you can use. Okay, alpha blend. Get back to it. I'm sorry, I had to scroll down a little bit. Alpha blend enables alpha blending between its own color and the background. It is used for truly transparent materials such as glass. Okay, one drawback of alpha blend is that multiple layers of alpha blend surfaces are often not displayed in the correct Z order. This is a common issue with hardware accelerated alpha rendering. The solution is to use alpha sort as explained below. Okay, so that's this next one right here is the one I'm getting ready to read, but I got to scroll down just a little bit so I can catch it in there. Okay, alpha sort, similar to alpha blend, but it solves the Z sorting issue inherent with alpha blend. If you see an alpha mapped object that is showing through other transparent objects, or if multiple layers of alpha are displayed in the wrong order, then you should use alpha sort instead of alpha blend. Keep in mind that alpha sort is much slower than regular alpha blend. Okay, so if you have a glass and a glass and it's showing this glass before it, you'll need to use alpha sort and it'll put it behind it. Okay. All right, then I did the pictures. Okay, face orientation. Okay, hey, we finally get to this one. Okay, face orientations. Rotates the faces away from their original orientation. Note that face orientations are not visible in the viewport. Therefore, to preview the effect of these settings, you need to enter the game mode. Okay, so remember that when you're messing with this, you'll have to turn it on. Oops, I did it wrong. Yeah, and then click it and then do it. Okay. All right. So, normal. The default option. No extra orientation is applied, and the faces are rendered as normal. Okay, which is the normal. Okay, so it'll show it exactly how it is, no matter what. Okay. Next one is billboard. Billboard forces the x-axis of the object to face the camera while keeping the z-axis of the object upright. To visualize this, imagine someone is holding a billboard and trying to get your attention by always rotating the billboard to face you. Okay, so holding up a sign, them guys on the street, hey, John, hi, come on over here. Okay, same thing. All right. Okay, billboard is used frequently to render simplistic vegetation and trees in architectural visualization, so that the tree can be represented by a single plane that always rotates around its center. Okay, so for all those people asking that question, how do you get that? How do you get the tree to look so cool? That you'll never get, be able to see it because they can actually you're actually looking at the billboard view. Okay. All right. Halo forces the x-axis of the object to always face the camera. This is similar to the billboard option, but no axis is locked. Halo, as the name implies, can be used to render particles and other non-3D sprites. Okay? Think about that next time you mess with it. Okay? Okay, so that was Halo. Now we're on to Shadow. Shadow objects will reposition and reorient themselves so that the center of the object will match the closest object directly below it in the z-axis. This is used to make an object fall and stick to the ground, such as when falling, faking a drop shadow. Okay, and I'm going to switch over to here real quick, so you can see normal, billboard. Let's see, billboard, halo, shadow. Okay, all right, so that way y'all can understand that. Okay, remember that face orientation is applied after logic and physics calculations. This means that the collision mesh will still be in its original position. So what you see on the screen could be different than the internal physical collision mesh. Okay, so be careful of that. All right, and we're up to almost 20 minutes today. So we're going to leave it off here at page 19. Okay, next week we'll go into into the physics. Let's see physics on here. Yeah, because you get game properties. You got options. On UPBGE, I think it's just added in automatically because I don't see physics. But we'll go ahead and read off anyway next week. So page 19. Let me kick back over to here. Okay, page 19, and it's at the top, I'm sorry, make that page 20. We're at the top of page 20, and we're going to go with physics, and I'm going to go ahead and switch over here so you can see. I don't want that. Okay, that will be on the physics next week. Okay, so page 20 next week. Till next time.